Hello, I'm Kimberly Pohovey. I work for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis in our Office of Stewardship and Development. I'm also a parishioner at St. Jude Church on the South Side. I could sit here and spout off facts about stewardship and about the UCA appeal that may or may not stick with you. But I'd prefer to share with you some stories about people who have inspired stewardship in my own life. For each of these people, a phrase comes to mind. And the first is, teach them in the way to go. And it applies to my father. My dad was an incredibly hard-working, blue-collar individual who owned his own fruit and meat market when I was growing up. He always had a positive outlook, an infectious smile, and a generous nature. And though he worked long hours and was busy raising 6 children, he continuously gave of his time to help others, whether that was volunteering at church, in his community, stopping to help every stranded motorist he passed, or giving of his treasure. He always gave joyfully. He was a man of deep and abiding faith, and the most powerful image I recall of my father is witnessing him down on his knees every single night to say his prayers. He endured much hardship in his life, but he remained God's faith-filled servant. He believed in God's providence, and he understood the power of prayer. He never let a day go by without expressing his gratitude. And without even realizing it, I absorbed so much about stewardship just by watching his everyday example. Happiness should not be measured by what we have, but by the ability to be content with what we don't have. This phrase accurately sums up the next individual I'd like to introduce to you. Way back when I was a mere 26 years old, I took a new position working at a university, and I was appointed an administrative assistant to help me in the role. Her name was Rosemary, and while she was more than twice my age, she was infinitely more wise than I. She taught me much. She was one of the most gregarious, joy-filled people I have ever encountered. She didn't earn a large salary, and I would say she and her husband lived a fairly meager lifestyle, no frills or fancy vacations or nice cars. She and I were talking one day about my being a newlywed and trying to figure out our own personal finances. And so she shared with me that when she and her husband were first married, the one priority they set was that they would always give to the church first, before they paid any of their bills. And through the years, they faced many financial setbacks, but they held fast to this principle. No matter how slim their finances, they never cut back on giving to the church. She figured that if they took care of their commitment to God, He would take care of them. And she said that was always the case. They didn't live fancy lives, but she said they always had everything they needed. And I will tell you, she and her husband were some of the happiest people I've ever had the blessing to know. They were an inspiration to me and to my husband, and we have modeled our giving in much the same manner over the years. Whenever my husband and I face any type of financial uncertainty, I think about them, and I tell my husband, you know God will provide for us. So for where your heart is, there your treasure is also. I'm sure you recognize this last phrase from Matthew's Gospel. I always connect the scripture to my middle son, Matthew, who suddenly passed away from SIDS when he was 3 months old. Sometimes we experience an event in our life where we meet a person who inspires us to fulfill God's greater plan. Matthew was both for me. So you're wondering what the stewardship connection is here. Well, after Matthew's funeral came and went, we found we had excess money left from his life insurance policy. We weren't comfortable keeping this money for ourselves. My husband and I have always been supportive of Catholic education, and we wanted to remember Matthew in a tangible way. So we established a scholarship fund in his name at the elementary school at our parish. We only had $8,000 to invest, and it didn't seem like we were going to be able to make much of a difference. But we soon learned that God had a bigger plan for Matthew's short life than we imagined. Family and friends rallied around us, planning golf outings and making additional contributions to the fund, and we've continued to contribute over the years whenever possible. That fund is now endowed, and it will hopefully last far into the future. Each year, the fund is awarded to a needy family completing kindergarten, and it helps pay for a small part of their tuition every year for the next 8 years. Each year, we have 8 families on scholarship at a time. So today I can say we've graduated 11 students from the scholarship program, and our first 4 awardees have even graduated from college. This has all happened because a tiny 3-month-old inspired us to be generous. And seeing the good that comes of this scholarship fund brings so much joy to my heart. And I can see just a tiny glimpse of God's greater story at work. So you're wondering why I share these stories with you. Well, it's because I want you to know that inspiration is all around us. And there's just so many ways. God is just waiting to use us for His glory. I bet every one of you has been inspired by someone else's stewardship, or you are even inspiring others yourself. You will soon hear more about the Archdiocesan United Catholic Appeal. This fund helps feed the hungry. It shelters the homeless. It educates our children, and it forms our seminarians. And there's just so many countless other ways, good works that are done throughout the community because of the United Catholic Appeal. Especially in these uncertain pandemic times, we all need just a little hope for tomorrow. So I urge you to listen and follow your heart. Don't hesitate, because so many people in our community, and most likely in your own parish, need your help. You will never regret giving, whether you give of your time, your God-given abilities, or the treasure with which God has blessed you. It will be given back to you tenfold. Thank you so much for listening, and may God bless you with abundance.